So let's just, in this top area, let's draw a cube. But what I want you to do is instead of drawing a cube to where we see both sides equally, I want to see a little bit more of the right side of the cube. And how I can start that out is I want to draw this bottom. This is going to be the bottom corner of my cube. So this isn't going to be a very steep angle, and this one will be at a steeper angle. And so let's just sketch in a cube up here. And one thing to concentrate on is the proportion of that cube, because we're going to use these square surfaces to help set up our ellipse. And if we start out with a surface that is not square, then it's going to be tough to do so. And so the next question becomes, I want to fill in this entire surface with an ellipse. And there's a couple of things that I want to do first. One is I want to find the minor axis. So y'all help me out. How can I find the minor axis for an ellipse that's going to go in here? It's going to go through it, so it's going to be in the center of this. It's going to kind of start there. But which vanishing point is that minor axis going to? Is it going to the left vanishing point or the right vanishing point? Left vanishing point. So I'm going to sketch that in. Now for some reason I put an arrow shooting out this way, but that should be in line with all my other vanishing lines, right? I'm actually going to... And what does the minor axis tell us? More than anything else? The angle, right? And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just put a little dot at each of these midpoints. And so if I know the angle, and I know that right through here and right through here I want this ellipse to come in tangent, then that should give me enough to ghost this in. I'm going to make sure that it's bisected by that minor axis, but I'm just going to ghost that in and do it very lightly. And if I had an ellipse template, now I could take that ellipse template and put it on top of this and sketch it in. But I'm just going to keep this one light for the purposes of what we're doing today. And I'm going to do the same thing with this surface over here. And one mistake that people might make is we're looking at this cube, and that cube is facing us more, so we see more of this surface. This we see a little bit less, so this distance right here is a lot shorter than this distance right here. So that's just one thing I'm looking at proportion. And sometimes ellipses can tell us, in fact, if we don't have the correct proportion. If we get this minor axis in correctly, but then we draw an ellipse in and it looks awkward and it's not working correctly, then it may be because we've just got the proportion down incorrectly. But I'm going to do the same thing. I'm looking at each of these 4 points. I'm trying to ghost in this ellipse before I put the pen down. I'm trying to see how it's hitting each of those 4 points. And I want that minor axis to tell me the angle. And you can see I don't know anybody who's just totally awesome at drawing one ellipse and putting it in correctly. But that gives me enough to know, and I can step back and look at that and it does not look incorrect. It looks fairly correct. Now where's my minor axis for a top ellipse? It's going straight up and down, right. So I'm going to find the center of this. If I need to find the center, I can draw an X through there. Again, the minor axis is going to tell me the angle, but an ellipse that's on a flat surface like this is always just going to have that straight up and down angle. And this is where people will make mistakes. And what I want you to focus on is a lot of people will not bring this ellipse far enough over this way. And if I'm going to sketch this one in slowly. Y'all watch. I'm going to hit that point and hit that point. And I need it to be smooth, a smooth transition. It's going to accelerate around, and it's going to accelerate around pretty quick to get back to this. But a lot of people do not let this go over far enough, and that's a mistake that will commonly happen. And I'm going to slow my pen down now that I've got a pretty general idea and try and sketch in the rest of this ellipse. I'm going to start here, come through there, and it's going to need to come out pretty far for it to get back around. But does that make sense that where it hits this point right here, I need it to go through tangent to this line headed out towards the vanishing point? Are there any questions on that? Okay, so for the second half of this exercise, let's sketch another cube in. But this one I want to see more of the left side of the face as opposed to the right side of the face. So quick review question. When I sketch in the right side as it's coming back, and then I want to think about how these lines are converging, will these lines converge quicker or slower than these lines over here? They should converge quicker. These are almost parallel. If you were to imagine that cube continuing to rotate around and being right in front of us, then those lines would look parallel and they'd be just flat. So if I just kind of tilt it, then I expose a little bit of the side, but that means that it's heading back towards that vanishing point pretty quickly. So that feels like a cube. Now what I want to do, instead of drawing an ellipse that comes all the way out to the edges, what I want to do is I want to draw an ellipse that is just offset inside. And if y'all watch for just a second, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and draw an offset line for construction purposes. And now I've got another square surface inside of there. And if I look for the center of this, it's going to be somewhere about right there. My minor axis is coming, it's going towards that right vanishing point. I'm putting down a couple of little dots, and I can sketch in this ellipse. And that minor axis again is helping me see the angle that I need. What I'm going to do from here is, just like if we were sketching a wine glass, or which we'll do in a minute, or a flashlight, I want to draw this thing and make it look like like I've got 3 speaker drivers in here. And so I'm going to take a step back and I'm going to sketch in another ellipse, and this should be about the same degree, so I'm comparing that, and it's not wide enough. But if I now come back in and I'm going to slow my pen down, sketch this ellipse in a little bit better. Notice that I'm only sketching about 1/4 of an ellipse because I'm thinking about how far I need to come down and come around. And I'm going to sketch this in. And now it looks like there's, if I was to draw a section line, looks like this comes down, comes in, comes back out, and you can see kind of the shape that's going on with this, right? I'm going to repeat that on the top. Again, I'm just going to offset this top surface to give me another square surface, and I'm feeling pretty confident. I'm just going to see if I can sketch this in. And then I want to go down about that same distance. I'm actually not going to see that little speaker cone. And lastly, I want to do it on this surface over here. Here are my 4 midpoints. My minor axis should be going towards this left vanishing point, and that's not quite doing it. That gives me my angle. And it actually looks like I need to bring that down just a smidge. Ghost that in. There's my center point. Take a little step back. Ghost in another one that's about the same degree but smaller. And I'll barely see that. One thing to do as you're setting up to sketch an ellipse is, just before you even start, think about, is this going to be a pretty wide degree or is it going to be a pretty thin degree? And obviously looking at the top of these, just the top surface, this one's going to be a little bit thinner than that one was because we're seeing less of that top surface. But the last thing I want you to do for this exercise is just darken in the non-construction lines of this cube.